Guys, stay tuned. We're about to get into a video that's very eye-opening, if your eyes are open, very truthful, and very down to the point, going back from the Sumerian times to right now, where we're at on this planet, to the exact day. Don't go anywhere now. If the truth scares you, you may not want to watch this one, but it's not scary at all. It's just different from what many have been taught. So, again, hang with me and stay tuned. This will be a good one. Now, we got to start right here. This is actually a video. It's a still shot. I don't want to play the video and get a copyright strike, but Jeremy Corbell put this up a while back, and they were filming it. It's an ex-Navy officer who Corbell was, and it was coming over their ship off of the coast of California, and it came over them and dived into the water. Didn't make a splash, and even underwater, they're talking about speeds up to 250 miles per hour. Think about that, leaving no wake, no bubbles, which tells you that it's probably some type of protected force field around it, pushing the water away instead of diving through it. That would explain the no bubbles, the no splash, and the speed. Anyway, Jeremy Corbell, ex-Navy officer, and let's get a little bit more information about it. Just like I said, though, all that we get to see are the grainy ones. But guys, I was in Phoenix in 2013 and saw 16 of these discs up close, up 100 feet from me. And that was part of this journey. But anyway, well, again, we're looking at an object flying, I think, over the ship and diving into the ocean. And this section of it is right before it went in. It didn't make a splash. And this is kind of a three-frame still shot section of the video. This is, I think, at the first sighting, lowering towards the water, and then entering the water here. And the people like Fox News, CNN, and all those reported that the military was so concerned about it that they say it jeopardizes U.S. maritime security. Now, you know, when you can't control something and it blows your mind, like you're standing on a battleship and something like this happens, I guess that's the first thing that would come into your mind, a thing of fear, that they could take power from you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm sure you do. Now, there is a video involved. I'm not going to play it, but I will link to it. You guys remind me. But this is an unidentified anomalous phenomenon called a UAP. And again, they fly in the water and the air. It was filmed from the USS Omaha off the coast of San Diego in July 29. Again, credit Jeremy Corbell. And so they've seen them many times since then. If you remember Admiral Byrd on his trip to Antarctica, these craft rose out of the water. It's documented, guys, and gave them hell, went back underwater. They were protecting something at the Antarctic. We're going to get into that. And when you see the pieces of this puzzle start to push together and come together, you're going to understand why I'm doing it. Now, we've got to go back to ancient Sumeria, and this writing is the oldest writing known to man. And it's called the Sumerian Kings List. And it lists a series of kings, some living as long as 36,000 years. Some people say that is can't be true, but guys, years declined, and we had two different sections of humanity. And again, if you look at the Sumerian text, you had An, but you had the two brothers, and they're key to this video, Enlil and Enki. Enlil was tired of the noise of the overpopulated planet, and back then, guys, when they had came in and did their DNA changing to basically get cheap labor for their mining expeditions and things like that, the life that was given to that group of humans was very long, and that ended up causing what Enlil thought was a mass overpopulation problem. And so he started doing things like poisoning the meat, killing the fish in the rivers, things like that, depleting the resources for humanity to survive. That kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Kind of like in the Southwest. Anyway, if you have a king's list that's been documented, and they've even now started to excavate the cities of these kings with the names of the kings on these big ziggurats and fortresses and things like that, identifying each one of these people. But again, you had Methuselah, 900 years old, but he was basically one of the offspring of this group. Remember, there was DNA manipulation. And you know that tale. Ninhursag was the female weaver that wove that humanity out of the clay of the earth. Now, Ninhursag was actually also in the desert Southwest and in South America. In the desert Southwest, she was the weaver. She created from the clay. She created life from the clay of the earth. She was called Spider-Woman. Same person. I'll get to that later. But understanding the capability that the Sumerians had, a lot of people will try to put the information down that they did not really have flying craft, that India did not really have Vimanas and all that. But that's to show, or that's to hide the power that was here, and to keep the people dumbed down from that type of information, just like taking Enoch out of the Bible. Anyway, people lived a long time. This group of kings were direct descendants, or directly the head level of the Sumerians, many call the Anunnaki, right? The tribes of Anu. They had the long lives, but their offspring were like Methuselah. 900 years, Noah, what was his, 600 years? It went down over the years, but when they first created that man, the man that we know now, out of clay, they had a long life, but that caused people to live a lot longer. So the overpopulation problem did not change every 70 years with a new generation of people. When you have people still giving birth and people living 900 years, you can see where that overpopulation would come quicker than you would expect. Anyway, Enlil got tired of the noise. You know the story. Tried to destroy life, take away the things of the planet that humans needed to survive, like water, things like that. So, now let's look at the cold hard facts. We're looking back, they say 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. I say back before the Younger Dryas, simply because of the flood that happened that the Sumerians talk about. You had a couple of different flood scenarios from Gilgamesh and two other that match kind of Noah's flood timeline. Anyway, to me, this happened before the Younger Dryas, and that was the flood that they talked about. Remember, the Sumerian text said they lifted like birds as the waves came in. Now, that was Enlil's group. Listen to me. Enlil and his group lifted off. What did Enki do? He's the one that talked through the reeds of the hut to warn about the upcoming flood, how to build the boat, things like that. He had made a pact with Enlil and the council, they called it, I think, that he would not disclose that the flood was coming. Enlil and all of them, including Enki, had voted in this council to do this. Enki didn't like it, but he had to go along and swear an oath to it. So that's why he didn't walk right up and tell someone how to build a boat. In that way, he did not break the oath. He did not tell a person. He spoke to a reed wall, if you read the Sumerian text, some of it. Anyway, so he did everything he could to go along with Enlil and the council that we've talked about, but he would not go against man. He helped create it, him and Ninhursag, and he didn't want to see it destroyed. So he gave out that warning. Well, you think about the lifespan again, going back 36,000 years. Even if you go to the 13,000 year period or so ago of the Younger Dryas, these people would still be possibly alive. Guys, at 36,000 years, on just being the king, not total birth time, probably was at death, the final number. And then some say 4,000 to 5,000 years for this tablets. Then that's just a blimp on a calendar to a being that can live that long. Pay attention, don't freak out. Now, if you turn that stone to all four sides, this is what it looks like, and there's a list where they've went down and written in the dates. It covers about 216,000 years of kings. And with that lifespan, they didn't die off. They said, again, the Enlil group, he was the Lord of the sky. Enki was the Lord of the water. Pay attention, you know where I'm going. Now, if you look at the carvings of Enki, he's always depicted with water coming over him and a crescent. I think it's two rivers, Tigris, Euphrates or something, and fish jumping through it. He was the Lord of the water. And his domain, and guys, it goes directly to these craft that's flying over the Navy ships. It was called the Abzu. That was his domain. Enlil had the sky. He had the water. And his domain was somewhere near the Antarctica, under the ice, in very pure water. It wasn't some kind of spiritual domain. It was an actual physical place. Anyway, in Sumerian mythology, Abzu represents the primordial life sustaining fresh water from underground aquifers, derived from Ab, which means water, and Zu, deep. The deep waters, the deep, cold, clear waters. And this was the foundation in the Sumerian text as a physical place, guys. It was a vast underground freshwater ocean that fed all lakes, springs, and rivers, like the world's giant aquifer. The cosmic oceans, and this was the key role of the Abzu. Guys, the oceans have went nowhere. How did Enki get there? What did Admiral Byrd see rise up out of the waters of the Antarctic as they were taking Navy ships and planes down there? They rose up. They shut him down. He come home. He got the hell out of there. And I'm telling you, in the Abzu came alive. Those deep, cold waters of the Antarctic with the deep caverns. And that was Enki's domain. He protected it. He knew man was not ready for it, and he didn't want any destruction to occur. His craft, just like the 16 that came over me in Phoenix, Arizona in 2013, his craft lifted up and shut down everything the Navy had, the military had. They could jam any signal. They could do anything they wanted to. Enki, was not trying to kill them. He was warning them off of a sacred area that was designed for sacred time. And guys, scientists are now finding, and have been for several years, vast, deep oceans, much deeper than the aquifers. And it's not like the hollow earth theory. There's just vast caverns of fresh water and air in these caverns that are subterranean. In the key roles of the Abzu, it was called the cosmic oceans. Sumerians believed the earth floated on top of this vast subterranean freshwater realm, which was balanced by the saltwater ocean called Tiamat. Now remember, in Noah's flood, the springs rose up. That was part of the flood, not just the rain. It was the domain of Enki. The Abzu was the sacred home of Enki, the god of water, wisdom, and creation. Very long lives. Enki's primary temple was in the city of Eridu, which was named Abzu, meaning the house of the cosmic waters. The symbolism was according to the creation. Fresh water from the Abzu was the life force of the earth. Look at the desert southwest. And the first humans were believed to have been molded from clay taken from its edges. Again, just like man, from the dirt of the earth and a rib, which was DNA, which is exactly what we're talking about here. Again, Ninhursag and this group, and she was in with Enki, created the form of a human with consciousness, they say, out of clay. Just like many other religious stories. Anyway, it created the symbolism. Again, the fresh water from the Abzu was the life force of the earth. And that's being depleted as we watched. And we're seeing an uptick in this activity, both from the sky and from the water. Do you think that underwater craft that can move at 250 miles an hour, dive in, move through the air, dive through into the water without a splash, can be verified by the U.S. Navy, was just created? How do you think Enki didn't fly around and dive into the ocean like Superman? They had craft. Remember, the Sumerians had craft. And because of the long life and the technological genius of this tribe, and both of Enlil and Enki's tribes, they had the technology to do this. They still have it. I've seen 16 of them come over my head. Highly polished bronze bottom disc right over me. Now, guys, this information has now been scanned, has been translated for years, but now with AI and things like that, it's a quick digital flash scan and an immediate interpretation. And they have all of this records, all of the Sumerian records that you can read for yourself, translated into, I think, over 90 languages or something. But the temple architecture, the term Abzu and later Apsu in Akkadian, also referred to the sacred cleansing water tanks placed in the courtyards of Mesopotamian temples for ritual washings. Again, Enki was the lord of the water. Now, don't forget, and do the study and you'll find out for yourself, that Ninhursag and Spider-Woman that led the Hopis, just like Ninhursag saved man many times, so did Spider-Woman. They made them out of clay. They were both called the weavers. The Sumerians traveled from Sumeria. They went all over the world to South America, established there, moved to the desert southwest. Guys, and again, the coal mines and copper mines throughout Utah and the desert are much more, are older than what they thought. Many had tried to date them going back to the Spanish coming in and starting the digs. They're finding out now, and they're not talking about it very much, but these are ancient mines that go much deeper. And the walls of them are different. They're more like a melted side wall or something instead of just carved and pickaxes and all of that. In other words, remember, the Sumerians were harvesters. They like gold, they like copper, they like silver, and that's had a lot to do with the making of the human, basically gold slaves. And that's what they did. It wasn't to take gold back to Nibiru. That's not really in the Sumerian text. They had other uses for it. They had technology to make crafts underwater and above the water. They used it for that, just like you would use gold and copper, silver, for technology. These were not dumb people. They were more intelligent than anything we have leading the planet right now, as far as in the human scale, which it really doesn't say much if you look at it. Anyway, now, again, so what we're looking at is the mining in Sumeria, the mining in South America, and the mining in the desert Southwest, including the mines in Utah, are very old. And that tells us why they describe Ninhursag and Spider-Woman exactly the same, because she was in both places. Do you understand? She led the Hopi as they travel over water. It's almost as described as in giant canoes from mesa to mesa from the floods. And then they were taken to the ant people, the friends of Enki and of Spider-Woman, taken to them underground to survive the cataclysm. Now, what's interesting is they had a sacred site that got covered, Lake Powell covered the canyon to where they say they emerged after all of that time back into the top of the earth, back into the surface. And that hole, sacred to them, was filled up with water during the damming of the Colorado River. Anyway, just a side note, but again, that goes back to the history of the Anunnaki, Spider-Woman, the Hopi, and the flood narratives. That is, if you don't believe that, again, Enlil's group, they lifted like birds, but Enki didn't. He stayed to help mankind. And do you know that in the city of Eridu, which is famous, Enki's temple was known as E2 Abzu, House of the Deep Waters, and was located at the edge of a swamp, and Abzu Certain tanks of holy water in Babylon and Assyrian temple courtyards were also called Abzu or Apsu. Typical in religious washings, these tanks were similar to Judaism's mikvot, the washing pools of the Islamic mosque, and the baptismal font in Christian churches. Anyway, his temple was the house of the deep waters. Now are you seeing with the long life, the technical expertise, why we are seeing these craft, and the government knows it? They just don't know really how to disclose it and what will happen to them. People will not, they're just going to say, hold up. There's some people in town, or there's a new sheriff in town, you better step down or stand down. That's what's going to happen, and that's what they're afraid of. Guys, there's no way that I would on purpose tell you any falsehoods about any of this. And I've studied it for a long time. If you guys were here in 2013, you remember me going through the Sumerian text. Now we can relate it to deeper information because time has passed, things have changed, and we become wiser. That information is being exposed in these end times. And guys, they have found in what the scientists are calling the liquid matrix. It's the real subglacial waterways, not bodies of water, waterways, subglacial. Are you understanding? Now think about this. You got a group, say we'll call it Inky's group. We don't know how many people it is. We know they can live much longer than we can, way past any deadline that we've talked about. But you got a real subglacial waterway. Mainstream science acts as if Antarctica is just a solid block of ice sitting on frozen rock. But over the last several decades, satellite data and ice-penetrating radar have shattered that illusion. The hidden networks, guys, geologists, have mapped over 370 active subglacial lakes and massive river systems flowing beneath kilometers of ice. The Abzu. Inky that was his domain. That's where he retreated to. And he's watching. Those craft flying under the water and above it are watching. They're watching for what? What did we just do a video on? The Antarctic ice is melting because it's 36 degrees above normal. You don't think that's a signal to a group there that the Earth's in trouble? And do you realize that if they stepped in just like they did in the past, just like Inky did replenishing the rivers with fish for people to eat, that Enlil was starving. If they stepped in now, it would not be up to Washington, D.C. when disclosure happened. It would happen exactly at that moment. They're seeing the world in trouble again. They're seeing what? Man being depleted. You take the water away, man dies out. Right? Just like fish in water. Same thing. They're seeing it. What are they doing floating under the battleships and flying over them? That's not new technology. It's ancient technology. They're still here. They're still watching. That will be the real disclosure. Listen to what I'm telling you. Just like when I say the fall of Meade and the fall of Powell will not be up to engineers and people trying to get different permits and gain different water rights and things like that. It will be Mother Nature stepping in and demanding that it's going to be a mass migration. But that is the time when we see, we're not looking for Savior. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. That it may be classified in some minds like that. We're talking about a technological, advanced civilization. We're not talking about worshiping a god. And when the Hopi saw Spider Woman lead them from mesa to mesa, away from the floods, they knew who she was. To them, she was a savior, which technically she was, but it was not a worship situation. It was all technical. They were saving people's lives. Also, listen, the scale, guys, of these hidden waterways that they're finding now, this is from Science Alert, they're comparable in size to major world rivers, and they move vast volumes of water under immense pressure beneath the ice sheet. Geothermal heat from the Earth's mantle keeps these massive networks completely liquid, dark, and insulated from the surface environment until the Earth shifts, with the Super El Nino going and melting the ice. Again, that's the sign. How close are we to disclosure? Why are the movies coming out with it? Why is DC showing us the worst images in human history about it? When I've seen 16 in living color 100 feet from me, guys, those images are an insult. I've told that story many times since then on YouTube. I'm not going to go into it deep here, but it tracks the UFOs that came over me. They were they were called flying shields. There's a name for it, but they're basically flying shields of the tribe of Enki, not Enlil. Remember, the underwater craft can fly both above, but that is Enki's domain. They're seeing the melting icebergs. When will disclosure really happen? How will it happen? It's not anything like what we've been told. It won't be, okay, we're going to introduce you to somebody. Here's Enki or here's... No, if and when they step in, it's going to change the whole game. But why are we seeing the underwater vehicles? The ancient ones. Because that civilization is still alive. Still watching the earth. Now, if you've ever read some of the Sumerian texts, they talk about just before the deluge, when the big waves came, when they lifted off, they got signals from Antarctica that the ice sheets were collapsing and that it would cause these massive tsunamis. I wonder where that signal came from. Who was the scouts? Think about it. But it's home to one of the largest volcanic rift systems on Earth, containing over 100 subglacial volcanoes. Now, when you combine the increased solar heat coming from this solar maximum and the ability of that sun, when we see it strike the earth and cause earthquakes and volcanoes, it's doing the same thing in the Antarctic. In reality, it says when subglacial volcanoes and geothermal vents interact with the bottom layer of a 2-mile thick ice sheet, they do not just melt water, they blast out colossal, hollow thermal caverns. These deep ice caves can reach temperatures of 70 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect human temperature, 21 degrees Celsius. They are completely enclosed ecosystems stretching for miles. And guys, in one research that I saw, they were talking about how under there in that darkness, how would you have lights? Well, you got technology. But also there was one thing about bioluminescence. And if you've ever, and I've sailed a lot, but if you sail at night, especially in the summer, you can leave your rudder will leave a wake, and really with a motorboat too, but a wake of green phosphorus creatures being stirred up by the water, and they glow. But it appeared that the cave was like it was a bioluminescent plant that gave off light. Just saying. But they had the technology to have light bulbs or whatever kind of light they wanted to. But again, the environment, these deep ice caves, again, would reach temperatures of 70 degrees. Get out, walk around just like a spring day. And think about it. Enki had just seen the chaos. He'd just seen the elimination of most of all of mankind. He saw even Enlil's people weep because of the silence. He wanted to get away from the noise. And for thousands of years, he's basically stayed out of public light. We're seeing the crafts. We've seen the underwater crafts. But now, with the world changing, what will happen? That is the million-dollar question. How will this disclosure come about? Will it be because we see something moving through the air and some changes of the environment, the rivers, the oceans, or whatever? We don't know yet. Will it be simply to lead people away like Spider-Woman did from a desert that's drowning? But this time it's drowning in heat without the water. Will the ability of Enki being the Lord of the Abzu, the waters, will he be able to, with technology, tap into this deep subglacial volcanoes that would allow the springs that the Native Americans have survived on for thousands of years, way before a dam was built, that are now drained out completely. They have a poison river and no springs because of deep drilling agricultural. Now again, you had geothermal springs involved, so that 70-degree temperature, again, all of it helped it stay right there, guys. They could do anything they wanted to. But again, it was Enki getting away from the noise until it got too loud again. He was not there to destroy mankind like Enlil was. He was there to protect it. And Enlil was not the Lord of the Water, not of the Abzu. Guys, I did a video one time. It was quite controversial, but it actually tied Enlil and Enki back to the Garden of Eve. That's, again, an older video that we will touch again in the future, just to show you how and we're talking about the Middle East, right? Egypt, the Holy Lands, Samaria, Iraq, Iran, all right in one area. And guys, these hidden rivers, they carve out massive subglacial conduits and estuaries. That's what they're finding out. And it's happened before in the time of the earth. They enter directly into deep saltwater cavities beneath the floating ice shelves. And think about it. All the discs, the same ones I saw, the same ones that lifted up, same group of ones that lifted up for Admiral Byrd and told them to get their butt out of there and go home, they could dive right there, go into these underground caverns or under ice caverns at perfect temperature. And where do you think the movies like Journey to the Center of the Earth and all of that came from? All of those type of situations, books, novels, movies, had to start somewhere. And again, why the Antarctic? Guys, again, the perfect getaway. It was not populated at the time. It's not really populated much. You got some melting areas that had the research stations on that they now have to move and restack into rock instead of ice. But that was the perfect place. Away from the world, away from everything that had happened, away from the loss of the people that he helped create. It was the perfect getaway. Now, guys, if you want to dive a little deeper, look up the title Operation High Jump. That was Admiral Byrd's fleet, and that was what they ran into in the Antarctic. And they always throw a smoke screen. Oh, we're looking for a hole to go to the hollow core of the earth, hollow earth theory. But they were tracking these craft, and they found them. And what have they done since the beginning of time? They search for new technology, power that will put them in an advantage situation over their enemy, like the Ark of the Covenant. Everybody wanted it. Armies. And for thousands of years, people looked for it, still look for it. When the Bible tells you it is in the temple, it is not on the planet. Now, let's look at psychology just for a minute. Guys, when Byrd first came back, he told some amazing stuff. But they initially just tagged it with hollow earth. What does that do? That is how the shadow government does this. They created the hollow earth myth to trap the public in a ridiculous sci-fi sandbox. What does that do? It discredits all the information. Let's tag it with something really goofy, and then the whole narrative will be discarded. But the raw data points to a far more grounded reality. Earth's crust, especially beneath the Antarctic, is like a massive sponge. It is filled with vast geothermal, heated, liquid-filled caverns and deep water pathways that link the oceans directly to the subterranean depths. Enki's Abzu is not a planet. It is not a magical realm. It is the unconquered, highly advanced subsurface infrastructure of our own world that is his world. But he comes out quite often, obviously. And where has the military logged the most what they call transmedium from air to water craft actively during the heat waves? At the Ross Ice Shelf and the Thwaites Ice Shelves. Now, something else that's quite amazing to me, in a sense, is that, again, that world was destroyed by a flood, most of it, and the flood Stories go through every religion. But there was an ancient Sumerian warning about a time when the sky would turn red and the earth would sweat, just like we're seeing now. So what does that do? It tells us that this is not a surprise to Enki and his group. They prophesized it. They knew the earth cycles. They knew what man would also do. Now listen, where's Enlil? Here's where I think he's at. They're all behind the scenes. But Enki's group is running the big corporations that drill into the water, that run 24/7. Do you understand what I'm saying? What was he trying to do in those days? He was depleting resources to get man off the surface of the planet. And now the question arises, we've got more data centers in the U.S. than most countries have, with many of them combined. I think 200. In Japan, we have over 2,000. And guys, if you look at the data centers that have been around Luke Air Force Base in just the last few years or been built there, it is massive. It's a different reason. It's like a destruction of the water in the desert Southwest, again, to shake off or shrug off an overpopulated area. Too much noise. And so, again, you're not going to be told the truth about that. We need these data centers. It's military. It's for the security of the country. Yeah. We understand exactly what it is. It has nothing to do with security for the people. Maybe for a group, it might. But we're going into that time, guys. I know it's a little different, but let's go back to the thumbnail just a moment. Now, of course, this is AI generated, guys. It's obvious, but the prompts were exactly what we've been talking about, and it depicts an underwater vehicle with Enki sitting in the control center, surrounded by technology. And it's just so you can kind of put a picture in your mind of what we're dealing with. Think about it, someone at that age, someone that technologically advanced, that has been through thousands of years, seen the earth ages change. That's why I said in the beginning, and that's why I went into the King's list and their 36,000 year lifespan in some cases. Understand what I'm saying? Our government knows exactly what I just told you. They don't know how to disclose it. But my point is, they're not going to have a choice. When it's time to step in, if this group is not ready to see the earth go into the pits the way it's going now, it will happen. But I wanted you to be aware of the possibilities and exactly what I see. Been doing this a long time. Just leave your mind open. Think about it, guys. Like I always say, our Father loves you. I love you. And it's a heads up. Be safe.